All right. Hey, everyone. This will be a quick video walking through the concept of materials, but then how do we incorporate different textures into those, and where can you find textures, and how can we get that into Unity, those sorts of things. So follow along if you want. If not, lots of this will be linked on your homework and things like that. And also, we'll be covering this really quickly in class as well. So I think probably the best thing to do is to watch and then try to make notes about where you have questions or why you have questions or places you want more information. And just to come into class with those sorts of questions, right? Or just send me emails and I can give you more info and we can keep pushing in different directions. So with that in mind, same project open from previous videos. This is our little XR interaction game thing where I made a little hoop where you can throw the ball in, right? Super fun. Now we want to start changing how this looks, right? We don't want this to just be white. We don't want these things to be like that, right? What could we do to kind of create some more depth and interest here? Not just in like how it looks necessarily, but also how it interfaces with you. So not just, okay, visually, like it looks like it's a table, but is it translucent? Does it appear to have holes in it? Does it, there's all kinds of different things you can do. And then by extension from this, you can incorporate video and things like that as well. So lots to see here. We'll just start with how do we change the material and how do we get in some kind of custom assets to make that look cooler. Okay, so just for purposes of picking something, let's do this table here. So table, we want this to not have the default material on it, right? This is white, and in fact, you can't change anything on this, right? Let's make it something else. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is make a material. And I've done this in other videos, but I did it really fast. So just follow along. We want to make a material in our assets down here. So this is not something that we're putting into the scene, right? So we're not right clicking and saying, okay, create 3D object material, right? Like we've been doing with our primitives. This is something we're going to make that's going to attach to an object. So this is an asset that we're creating. To do that, you actually click down here in your project menu. So here I already have some that I've made. These are from previous videos, but I'll go ahead and do this again. We're going to right click down in here and you get all these different options, right? We want to go up to create and then you get all of this different stuff. Just don't freak out. Again, most of this we're probably not even going to talk about in this class. We'll talk about it very tangentially. And we want to find material. That's down here. These are grouped more or less by families, as you'll start to see. Like these are the rendering things. These are animation. This is audio. These are scene things. This is different scripting kind of things like shaders and C# and stuff like that. Anyways, we just want to click on this. We want a material. And it's going to say new material. I'm going to call this table. Table. Now notice I've already got 5 materials just hanging out in my root asset folder. When you start having stuff like this, you want to start organizing your stuff because your project will get very confusing very quickly. So to do that, I'm going to right click and go to create and make a folder. And I'm going to call this folder materials, right? I'm going to put all my materials in there, just shift clicking. So click, shift, and then dragging them in. So now, nice and organized, we can make materials and put them in this folder. Things are going to get you crazy. It is very, very, very easy to have a crazy, confusing project, and you don't want that. However, if it does get too sort of nuts and you can't remember where you put something, you can use the search functionality over here, and you say, I think it was called floor or something like that. You can type that, and it's going to search your project, your assets for anything called floor. Additionally, and I don't think I said this in class yet, but we're coming at this thing sort of like in different layers, right? As we work through the engine. There are these little buttons over here that can be useful. If you click on this little guy here, it's going to say search by type, and you can limit your search to this type of discrete asset. So if you just said material, it's just going to show you every material in your project. And then a lot of these we haven't even talked about yet. We haven't talked about prefabs yet. We will soon. Scenes, right? Scripts. There are no scripts. There are no shaders, right? But you can really hopefully easily see how that could be really helpful, especially audio clips or something. If you bring in a ton of audio, you just want to find it and you can't remember what the name is, but you know it's an audio clip. That's really helpful. Okay, so we've got our material called floor. To apply a material to an object, there's a couple of different ways, just like everything in Unity. There's more than one way to do basically everything. I'll show you the not easy yet very direct way, and then I'll show you the direct way that is a little bit slightly trickier to see if you're doing correctly. So the not as easy but very logical direct way is to click on the object you want to edit. So we're talking about the table, and then under Mesh Renderer, you have this material property here, and it says default diffuse, and you can click on this little circle guy here. And if you do that, you're going to get select material, right? And you have a bunch of these different things. These are all ones that come, are textures that come default with Unity. And then you have the materials that we've made so far, right? So we have floor. And you can go ahead and click on that. And you see it right there, right? Here's our floor. And right now, my floor, oh, I said floor. I meant to get table. Oh my God. Not the floor. I want the table. Come here. There we go. Table. It's nice and white, right? There's our table. Again, just a standard shader, all these different properties, and we'll start talking a little bit about today. Another way you can do that is click on your object, and then you find your material in your project, and you can just drag it over like that. Super easy, right? Instead of clicking and searching here. There's times when you want to be able to search, and then times when you just want to drag, right? So say like you're like, oh, actually, I wanted the hover material on this. You can just do that really fast, right? That said, the way that I honestly end up like applying materials is you can drag them just right into the editor, and you can just say, "Oh, table. Actually, I want hover." You just do that. So I just click and drag, and you can see it's a little tricky because you're going to like hit different objects, right? And you have to be very precise with where you're dragging. It's very easy to accidentally apply material that you don't want applied, but it's fast, right? If you just go, that's what I want. So that's how you do it. Now we've got this table material applied to our table object. And now we want to do something to it. So if we open up the material, you have a couple of options. More or less, these are the ones you have without applying anything custom, which is the albedo. And this is just the more or less dealing with the surface color and how light affects it. Again, a lot of the stuff we're going to skim over, but I'll provide you with a reading if you want to dive in more deeply, and then we'll reference it throughout the class and maybe dive a little bit more deeply. But for the purposes of what we're doing, right, it's the coloring of the object. And you can change it to whatever color you want, something horrifying like that, black. I'm going to leave it at white right now because I actually don't want this to have a color because I want to bring in another asset as a custom texture. So I don't necessarily just want this to be, okay, a blue table, which can have, it's really great for prototyping, right? Okay, now blue table, red ball, and just go, right? And start testing things. But you're probably going to want something more than that, right? Something a little more interesting, a texture, depth, something kind of cool that this table could look like. And to do that, we're going to need to grab something custom, something from outside of Unity. Now, I'm going to take you to a website that I'm linking on your homework. However, this could be anything. Like you could take pictures of stuff, right? And bring them into Unity and use them as your texturing that you apply to a material on an object. So just keep that in mind. It can get really weird. Take a picture of your cat and just like apply it to a ball and play basketball with your cat picture. I mean, there's lots of different kind of zany, weird things you can do. And the more you experiment, you'll start to see like lots of possibilities. So don't think like, I'm going to box you in here. Don't think you need to be that boxed in. I want you to kind of play and see what happens. Like for instance, eventually it could be like, oh, what if this was just a movie? Like this whole box is just playing like a loop of a movie, and that's like your table, and it's in front of you in VR, and it's actually a 6-sided television, right? I mean, you can do all kinds of nuts things. Okay, so not quite there yet, right? Let's keep it focused. What I want to bring you to is this website called Polyhaven. And if you're watching this as part of 460 in fall 2022, this was your assignment this week, the week of September 5th, Labor Day, so the third week of class. And I give you all this stuff, right? These are lots of different resources to check out. Here's another really good YouTube guide I think is terrific, just talking through a lot of these same things. And then this website called Polyhaven, which I have open up here already. And this is Polyhaven. So Polyhaven is super cool. It's a website with lots of different textures and models and things that you can grab for free. Okay. So we're not talking about models or HDRIs yet. So let's just go, you go there and you click on Browse Textures. If you look through this, these are different textures that we could pull into Unity, right? These are different things we could make our table look like, right? Coast, sand, rock, grassy, cobblestone, all these sorts of things. And I expect you to want like to play with this, like try different things, right? Search through all these different things over here, um, and like lots of different options, right? I'm going to grab this one. This is the worn wood table worn, just because it's a table, but again, it could be bananas. You can go nuts and do whatever you want. And then up here, just to show you the different options here. There's 1K, 2K, 4K, 8K. For Quest development, you do not want to go over 2K. 2K is plenty for the Quest to deal with. Though, obviously, if you're doing like, higher end dev work, you might go 4K. 8K is overkill probably for anything you would be doing at this point, I guess is, but there may be some use case for it. But we'll leave it at 2K, right? Just the resolution, how much data you're getting. And then I'm going to click download. And you're going to get this thing, the zip file. This is mine here. I'm going to click on that, and it opens up in my my downloads folder. And I'm just going to go ahead and extract it, extract all. It's throwing it into my downloads, and then I'll show you the extracted file. Okay, so this is extracted now. And you have a couple of things in here, a bin file and a 3D object. And this is actually what's called a GLTF file. We're going to ignore these for now. In fact, if you're doing this just for our class this week, you can delete these if you want. You don't need them. What we're really interested in is these. These, if you double click on them, I think this is going to open in preview here. This is a JPEG file. It's wood table worn diffuse 2K.jpg. And this is like a picture someone took with a nice camera of a table, right? And you get this texturing. What we want to do is get these three different JPEGs and pull them into our project. So how do you get a custom asset into your Unity project? There's a bunch of ways. The easiest way probably is for things like this, little things, is to highlight them and just drag them into your project like this. If you're if you're grabbing something bigger, like something that may cause your computer to hiccup right there and like really freak out, that's more than a few megabytes. The other way you can do it is to go into assets up here, and you go to import new asset, and you go and find it somewhere on your system. Like if it's maybe like an MP4 or something like a big file, if you drag that in, your computer may start freaking out because it's a huge file that's copying and then moving over and all that stuff. That could be better. And there are other instances where that process is better as well that we'll talk about in class. But for little things, you just drag them right in and drop them. And then we have these three things here. We have three textures. And these are all different JPEG files if you look at them. So what are these, right? Again, this is like surface level, like not going into too much depth about what these different things are. However, I suspect if you know what these are, then you know what they are, right? Like you've done this before and you've gone through, sort of texturing and stuff like that in the past. Totally cool. If you haven't, hopefully this will give you enough information just to be able to read the documentation that, I'll link to you, and then apply that. Make some guesses, do some searching, ask some questions of me, and we can sort of dive a little bit more deeply into these different things and how to make these files if you wanted to make your own texture or something. So these are the three different things we have. We look at our table and we go back down to our material here. Notice we have something called normal here. It's like wood table worn nor.gl2k, right? This nor actually stands for normal. And roughness, this is rough. This is actually a roughness map, and this is called a normal map. And this is called a diffuse texture, a diffuse map. These correlate to these little boxes here. These are where we want to add our textures. We want to drag these over onto here, or you want to go and click on these little buttons here and go and find them. So how do you know what to put where, right? It's tricky. So these are not necessarily named when you go and grab stuff from the internet, are not necessarily named with the same convention or built for the shader that you're going to be using in Unity. So that's odd, right? I mean, they don't always line up. And they don't need to, because there's different conventions and like methodology and processes for making these files. However, I will say a quick Google search will answer the question almost certainly. So if you are like, well, wood table worn diff, if you say like diff JPEG standard shader, like into Google, you'll find the answer, which is okay. Diff stands for diffuse, and diffuse is more or less the surface texture of an object and the picture of it and how that is going to interact with light. It is the closest thing you're going to have to the actual like photograph of the thing, right? Like someone taking a picture of the object that you're wanting to bring into 3D. Um, that we don't have diffuse over here. We could if we had a different shader, but what we have, the closest thing is this thing called albedo. And if you drag over here, you're going to see what happens, that it skins the box for us. And now we have this thing that looks like, okay, well, it's wood. And it looks like particle board, like an IKEA box or something, right? These are like panels, and that's all good, right? To be completely honest, for a lot of things that you're going to find or do, you may only have a diffuse texture or an albedo texture, and that's it. So this is like acceptable if you bring this into VR. It'll look fine, but it'll look a little flat, like in the sense that it just looks like a picture has been like laid on the object, right? That like sort of like unnaturalness of it is what these two other JPEGs are trying to solve. Okay, so the second one, Nor GL, I called a normal. It's a normal map, and if you look at it, it's like this really weird, like purple bluish thing, right? And you can see if you look, I'm not sure if it comes off over the recording, but there's like little bumps and stuff like that. The normal map essentially works to give the appearance of depth and texture to the texture. So right now, like I said, if you were going to VR, this looks like a picture, but it doesn't look like there's like little divots and ruts and things like that, right? Spoiler, if you're playing a game and it looks like there's little divots and ruts and things like chips out of metal or something, there aren't. Like that's way, way, way too difficult to process physically. What there are visual impurities that are there to through the GPU and the shader to create the illusion of depth. And that's done through things called normal maps or bump maps that can be created in Photoshop. Again, happy to walk you through that process. The reality is, if you want that, you just drag it over to here, to the normal map, and watch what changes. You'll see it like immediately. It looks much cooler. There's now this like metallic kind of quality to it we can play with. But it looks like it has some like texturing to it. Again, I don't know how well this is coming across on Zoom, but it looks much better on my computer. Over here too, if you click Fix Now, this will help a lot. If this wasn't tagged as a normal map over here, this is something we don't have to necessarily do, but you can, when you bring the texture in, you can change it to normal map here and hit apply. Or Unity is nice enough that it will tell you to do that. So click Fix Now, and this will help a lot. Now, hopefully, it'll come through even more clearly. Oh, my computer's doing weird things. There we go. Yeah, we lose the metallic nature, which is great. Now, hopefully, that's even clearer. It looked a little bit okay on my end, but now this should be much clearer. You can see even when I'm zooming in where it gets like distorted too, right? That's from it stretching. We'll chat about that a bit too. But now you can see it looks like it almost has like chips out of it, right? Like the actual piece of wood. Cool. The last one is this thing called rough. The roughness does not map directly to any of these things in the standard shader. The closest one is the metallic and the smoothness of this. You can go ahead and try this and see if you like it. There's a way to create this. You have to go in and actually edit this JPEG file to make this work correctly. But if you put it on, it looks kind of good. I mean, it looks okay. And then you can play with this slider here to honestly, at this point, just kind of dial into what you think looks all right. If you want to go further into this, you have to actually go in like a roughness texture. You want to go and invert it because it uses like the alpha channel and the shader. In the standard shader, the metallic smoothness attribute uses the alpha channel, and you have to go and invert the file. And if you don't want to do that, it's fine. It's like that's again, this is if it's your kind of axe and you want to dive through that kind of stuff. Go for it. What's important though is that's not really that complicated, right? We made a material, we went on a website, kind of providing that to you, and grabbed some stuff. There are lots of assets and places you can get things. One of them, and I think I did this in a video, and I can't quite remember, is to go to the asset store. Oops, not not the Musician's Guide to Theory Analysis. You can do that too if you want. It's a good time. is to go to the asset store. So we'll talk about this in class as well, but the asset store for Unity is just an amazing resource. Lots of free stuff. This is also good, like post this class, you can publish your work to the asset store if you want to share things, sell stuff. It's a community that people will, buy 3D objects and textures and music and all kinds of stuff. But what it does have is lots of free textures. And you can see I typed that in there. I typed in free texture. It's like, what do we have here, guys? And over here on pricing, you can even click free and see what comes up. And I want to pull, where was it? The metal one, this one. This looks like it says purchased on my end because I've already downloaded this. But if you were to grab this, it's going to pop up something that looks like this. It says I grabbed this in 2019. And yours probably says download here. I'm going to click open, and all you would do is click download and then open. I'm going to show you what happens here. It's going to open in what's called, it'll give you this and say open in the Unity editor. You can say, sure, always do that. It's going to open in your package manager, and you're not going to have all of these different things here. You're going to have probably nothing here or very little because these are all the different things I've downloaded, 317 packages. And then you see this, Yug this artist, free metal materials. What's important is it says re-download or download and import. I'm going to re-download it just in case I don't have the right download. And then it's going to download. What this is literally doing is just grabbing the textures and materials from the Unity Asset Store and putting them on your computer. And then you have to click import to actually bring those into your project. I just want to show you this. We'll do this in class a bit to kind of, in a lot of different ways, working through this workflow and the asset store and these different windows that pop up. Just so as you're following along, if this feels fast, it's fine. We're going to go over this again. But this is what's coming in. You're going to get a folder called Yug Hues, free metal materials. And then underneath that, you have a demo, and then you have materials. And then you notice also there's a textures folder and all these TGA files. And if you click at them, like it looks like those things we were just dealing with, right? You can see some normal, diffuse textures and that kind of thing. What's cool about this, though, is that the artist who put this together made the materials already. So you don't even have to make them. They made them, brought in the textures as well, and assigned all of that for you. So if we hit import, it's literally just like drag and drop materials, which is really nice, right? Let it go. It's bringing in TGA files, which is another, visual file type, right? Like PNGs and TIFFs and JPEGs. And again, there's all kinds of reasoning for what you would use and why, and which one's more important or better, and fits a certain workflow or a certain kind of project that you're working on. And as those kind of come up, like those different issues, we'll talk about them in class if and when they're relevant. But again, I've been talking a lot about this, like, so if this is your background, like you'll already know that answer. And I think that's absolutely true. If it's not, it's okay. Like you don't need it to be. Your goal can just be to learn this and work in a surface level with like the visuals, and then dig into audio or dig into physics or something like that. I got two little yellow things up here. Yellow is fine. You can kind of ignore these usually, and just hit clear. When you get things that are red here, that's bad news. Red can be really bad. It means that you might have some sort of scripting error or something. So if you see red stuff in class, raise your hand. If you see yellow stuff, usually you can sit clear. It's okay. Cool. So we got this thing here. We have demo. We can ignore that. And then we have materials, right? And we have all these different material folder or files. And if you click on them, you can see them over here. They look like the standard shader, right? And they've applied specular and normal maps and that sort of thing. And same thing. You can just apply these to an object like that. And this is pretty cool, right? Because it looks translucent, even though it's not, right? It doesn't quite wrap correctly, right, on a sphere, but that's okay. You notice how it like looks like it's invisible, and even like this cool like shadowing appears as if the light is going through the metal of the ball. It's all fake, right? This is not actually translucent. Those aren't holes. You can't put something through it. It's the code, right? It's the shader telling the sphere to render like that, or telling the GPU to render the sphere like that more appropriately. And again, it's a very important differentiation. It can come up, right? If we were to make like a hoop, right? that didn't have an open center, and you put a material on it that it makes it appear as if it does, it doesn't matter that it appears as if it has a visual opening. It needs to physically have one for you to be able to throw a ball through it. Even if it looks like you should be able to like drop a marble through this, you cannot. Again, it's like rendering issue. It's far too difficult, or at the point of when this would be made like 5 or 6 years ago, it's too difficult. Now it's getting a little bit easier. GPUs are more powerful. Anyways, that's the idea. Um, Lots of different materials to play with. I went to the asset store here. You can just search like materials and then set it to free, and you have 505 different ones to play with and try. One more thing I'll show you here really quickly is a type of material that's specific called a skybox. And the skybox is the area around you. Up to this point, we've had this thing here, this it's called a procedural skybox, which sets in for the ground, this gray, the horizon, and the blue. I'm going to grab one really fast to show you. Let's grab the Milky Way skybox. This is a nice one. And again, I'm just going to hit open. And then it pops up over here. It should open up your package manager. I'm going to hit import, and it's getting me a material.mat. However, what's super cool is this is a special type of material that we don't want to actually, it gives me this problem again, that's fine. We don't want to actually just apply to a box or something, right? We actually want to apply it to the sky. So we can do that. It's super easy. Go into our Milky Way material, and we get this material, and you look over here, and now it has shader. It says skybox, and it says cube map. We'll talk about this in class more, but just so you can play with this on your assignments. Essentially, the idea is that in most games or function like this, that you have infinitely far away surroundings, and then you create the illusion that those things can move, and maybe they have animation in them or something. But you create the illusion that one can move towards those things, right? But really, what it is you're in a giant cube that you can never get closer to, and that is merely just projecting in images that create this sense of space, right? Like you're in a fishbowl almost, right? Now games are obviously like breaking out of this. This is more of a backwards facing concept, right? You can get procedurally generated stuff like Minecraft, or games are truly open world, like where you can go anywhere. Like sort of Breath of the Wild is kind of like this on Switch, but there are even ends to that game, right? But that idea, right, where there are things you cannot reach, and they're there just to give you reference. That's what this is. So you can simply just drag this in and apply it to your sky like that, and you get this, which all of a sudden looks way cooler, right? It looks super, super cool. And you can see that's done stuff to the lighting. We'll talk about that, how that's affecting your lighting, and how you can like match your lighting to match your skybox and create like realism, all that stuff. The other way that you can apply your skybox, I simply just dragged it in and applied, I just like letting go on my sky. If you want to do it a different way, if you might not have this set up yet, you need to get your lighting menu out, and then under environment, to get the lighting menu, you go up to window, and it's under rendering. Oops, rendering, lighting. Notice I have mine docked over here. A couple weeks from now, we'll talk about lighting, and you can maybe dock it and just keep it there if you want. You'll get that, and it says environment, and then there's a place to actually apply the material here, and you can drag it there, and that would also do the same thing. Okay, that's a real fast, dirty, quick rush through materials and how like it should apply to us in 460 if you're taking that class. Again, in your homework, linking in a bunch of other explanations, shader, deep dives is one. That video with Freya that's like 2 hours long is awesome. Goes into math and like how it works, the code and the science of it. It's really cool. But just let me know if you have questions. Again, we'll recover this stuff in class, but I want you to be able to move forward, right, and do some of these things on your own, and then push a bit, read some documentation, and see what you can come up with. So if you have any questions, just let me know. Otherwise, I will see you in class. See you later.